Hey everybody, CJ here, just to let you know what's going on. You're about to listen to part 2 of our special StephAskew episode, where we pick up with Stephanie's third question. So, just me right now, but it'll be right back to me, Steph, and Rico. So enjoy the rest of the episode, guys. Thanks for listening.
I love your choices. That was really good. It was very thoughtful.
Thank you. I
For
can't
having
guarantee
to do it on the fly.
Right, yeah, I can't guarantee they're going to be that next week, but, you know.
All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about is, I know how hard this is going to be for Rico, but your go-to movies at different stages in your life. So your favorite movies at different times in your life.
Do we have specific time periods in mind, Steph?
So let me go through mine, and then you guys can talk.
Okay.
So, earlier, Rico had said that one of his customers was someone who worked on the Ferngully movie.
Yes.
And so that really struck a chord with me because, like I was telling you earlier about remembering things and having dates and stuff, I am like that with my own personal memories. I'm very sporadic and very snapshotty. So when I actually remember things as a movie reel, it's a big deal to me. And one of the things that I really remember is the very first movie that I went to was Ferngully in theater. And so, that was a big deal when he said, "Oh yeah, and I worked on the lead character Krista," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Ferngully shaped my entire childhood. Really, it gave me the tree hugger perspective of life that I have never shaken because I saw that when I was so young.
Just all over her.
What was that, Rico?
I said she still has splinters all over her every time she hugs a tree. I have to dig them all out with tweezers.
We just got new tweezers for that. Okay, and then to build on my example of what I'm asking you guys is throughout childhood, I was always reaching for the Robin Hood movie with Kevin Costner, Robin Hood and Prince of Thieves.
Yeah.
My sisters were reaching for the cartoon Robin Hood or The Little Mermaid, but that was not me.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, rewind that opening where his hand gets cut off because he stole something. Like, I was that kid that was just, freakish. So that was my go-to movie as a kid.
That movie honestly has one of my favorite fucking lines from any movie in it. And it's a dumb line, but it makes me smile every time I hear it. And Steph, if this is one of your movies, you're going to know this scene. And Rico, that's not to say you won't know it, and it's towards the end of the movie. And they're trying to get to Marion after the sheriff has her kidnapped and going to force marriage and sex and that whole thing. Yep. And him and Azim get on a catapult and Will shoots him over the wall.
Yeah.
And he looks up and he goes, "Fuck me, they cleared it." And turns and walks away. And I don't know why. It just makes me smile every time.
That is a really good line. That is really funny. I laugh at that every time, too. But the one that stuck with me was, I'm going to dig your heart out with a spoon.
Yes.
I was like, oh!
And then why is spoon?
As in, because it'll hurt more, you twit. I'm like, oh!
I know a lot of people have problems with that movie because there are some pretty big holes, but who cares?
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. It's still a good movie. That's the thing that, for a show that 90% of the time talks about movies and picking apart movies, you have to suspend disbelief at some point when you're watching a movie. Unless you're watching, a flat-out documentary, you have to suspend...
certain things, yeah.
And just enjoy the the image is in front of you. Now, some of them are terrible. I'm not gonna lie, and there are some that are really fucking bad. That's not one of them. Like, anyway.
I have nothing against Prince of Thieves. My only problem is Kevin Costner's like Idaho fucking accent. Like,
oh yeah, I know. That's what he means by you have to overlook certain things.
Right. And it's also, I mean, that line that I was just talking about, fuck me, is not something they would have said in that time period. I don't think that was a word yet, honestly.
No, fuck's been around. Fuck was around.
But no, there's something
but they would have said fuck me. Like,
no, the particular phrase, definitely not.
Right. There's something about that phrasing that wouldn't have happened, and there's a lot of holes in it. I get it, but it's still so good. It's one of Rickman's best roles, I think. Not to go on a thing, but Rico?
I think on the other spectrum, I always preferred Robin Hood Men in Tights because at least going into it that there's not going to be any fucking sensibility of any sense.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, yeah, but I didn't grow up watching Men in Tights, and yeah, it's hilarious and it's better, but that doesn't. I'm just talking about at certain times in my life. This was when I felt like shit. I would grab this movie to feel better. Like this was my go-to movie.
I gotta jump in for a second and I sounds like I'm in the minority here, but I wouldn't say it's better. I'm sorry. I like Men in Tights, and it's kind of funny, but it's not better than Prince of Thieves, not by a long shot. And honestly, I don't even think it's the best Mel Brooks movie. I'll take Spaceballs over Men in Tights.
I know you'll take Spaceballs. Spaceballs in the fucking face, buddy.
I knew that was coming. I should have seen that coming a mile
away.
Usually,
when balls come, usually they come in your fucking face. That's what balls are for.
I'm just going to stop talking now. On a audio context.
Sometimes they're in tights. Men in tights. I agree. It's not better than Prince of Thieves. Prince of Thieves obviously had a bigger budget and has better respected actors. You're going up against fucking, Kevin Costner at one point was a phenomenal fucking actor. It's still, I still think he can do some great roles here and there, but
he just doesn't act as much as he used to either. I mean, let's be fair. What's that, Steph?
I was like, oh, Dances with Wolves. Such a good one.
I've never seen that.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's really, really good.
I don't have any desire to see it. Like, Deb tried to get me to watch it, and I was like, no.
Dude, the history-reaching motherfucker, you're not gonna watch Dances with Wolves? What's wrong with you?
Wow, Steph, how do you really feel? Jesus.
Translation.
Right? Jesus.
This kid's got fucking claws, dude. Watch out.
Damn.
So, Steph, what's your next one? What's the next age group? So,
yeah, just let's move on, please.
So is it when you took over for Satan in Hell? Were you about 12?
Wow.
Middle schoolish, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Honorable mention, I grew up watching Princess Bride all the time with my family. So that is throughout childhood, middle school, and high school. Just honorable mention there.
Yeah.
For someone who doesn't really like history, you like a lot of medieval sword kind of shit.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about the Princess Bride being that historical, but sure.
Well, I'm saying it's got like swords and shit like that.
Well, yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Okay, so in middle school, I reached for The Jerk with Steve Martin.
Okay.
Did I lose?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, that was my go-to to make me laugh in The Jerk. It was, it's too funny.
I'm going to continue to get in trouble. I've never seen that movie.
Shit.
Fine.
No, that's not one that, I don't want to see. I just haven't. I actually have not been in a position to see it. It's never been on when I've been around it. It's never, or let me rephrase that. I've never been around when it's been on. No one I've known has owned it. You know, that kind of thing. So I just haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to it. I could like it. CJ, I could not like it. I don't know.
CJ, do you own a shovel?
Yeah.
You should dig your own grave because Steph's going to help you with that.
Yeah, right?
No, it's really funny because it's very slapsticky. The way they present it is so that you're supposed to laugh. It's a good film.
Right, and keep in mind, unlike Dancing with Wolves, like it's not that I don't want to see it. Like I just haven't had the opportunity. If given the opportunity, I'll give you 2 examples of other ones that were like that I just never saw until I was given the opportunity. Very quickly, Steph, and I'll let you get to your third one. I don't want to hijack your list here, and you guys might have to help me with the title of the one because I don't remember it. But the one that I do remember was Deb and I just watched it last year one day when I was really sick and we were looking for something to do. Was The Money Pit, which was funny. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'm not saying it was a classic, although I know people think that way about it. But I definitely didn't hate it. It was fun. And then Deb's exposed me to a few movies I never saw. For example, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was another one. I never saw that till I got with her. But that's not the other one I was talking about. The other one I was talking about is Billy Crystal's a cop in Chicago with what's his name? It's a black guy. I think it's what is his name? They're cops and they're about to retire. They got this. They found a way to make all this money, and they were going to retire. I'll have to look up his thing because it's going to bother me.
I'm looking it up.
It's an 80s movie. Like it's like mid to late 80s movie.
Running Scared.
Yes, that's it. Who's the black guy? Is that Gregory Hines? It just came to me. Is that Gregory Hines?
That is Gregory Hines.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, and Jimmy Smits is the villain.
Is he? Shit. It's been a couple years since I saw it, so anyway.
Yeah. Bail Organa.
Yeah, right. I know him more from NYPD Blue, but that's a whole other conversation.
I know him from Dexter, honestly. Every time I look at Jimmy Smits, I'm like, motherfucking Dexter.
I've still never watched the show, so I can't speak to that. But anyways, Steph, your movies.
Wait, hold on. Steph, is it just 3 movies, or is it like
No, I'm just these are different stages in my life. So
okay.
So that was like middle school. High school was Nana La Mancha with Peter O'Toole, which that's when I heard the song and I was like, oh my gosh, blah blah blah. I also have to mention the movie Love Story, which is not an upbeat movie in any way, because sometimes to make me feel better, I have to see something that makes me feel worse. And it puts life in perspective again.
Okay.
So that's Love Story for me. And then in college, I always reached for The Court Jester with Danny Kaye. And that's where I always quote the Get It, Got It Good all the time, because that's like prominent in the movie. He's like, did you get it? Got it? Good.
Is that why The Court Jester is displayed prominently in the classic section now at work?
I have no idea what you speak.
As soon as I walked by the classic section when she was helping me out the other night, I was like, oh, she totally was like standing in the classic section, like reorganizing and be like, nope, Court Jester's displayed.
You know when he sends me to put the movies back on the shelf, who's organizing that section? By which one's facing out?
I hope you're getting paid for these excursions stuff.
No, I just volunteer. It's fun.
She gets good. And it's a refund.
I get paid in kisses and get to choose a movie I want to see.
Fair enough.
And then before I moved out here, I would either reach for the movie Penelope with James McAvoy and Christina Ricci. It's a love story movie.
Yeah.
Or I would reach for Roxanne with Steve Martin. That's a fun movie.
So you love movies with people with weird noses?
Yeah,
All right. You must fucking love Pinocchio.
No, actually, I was never really a Pinocchio fan.
Fuck you.
I know it's your like go-to, and I'm like, it's okay.
I'm with you, Steph.
Fuck you too.
But I was
Rico,
really
if we kept a tally of how many times you said "fuck you" to me,
at some point you think you'd fucking take that advice and get fucked.
I try, but that's another conversation.
I was really struggling to come up with a movie that I would reach right now, but I don't know. I don't know what would be my go-to movie. I'm too happy right now. So yeah, that was it. That was my list of movies. Just different stages of your life. You can choose like turn of events that happened to you, like first time you got a job and you just like always when we reach for a movie or whatever. But I just figured like, the stereotypical stages of life was a pretty good basis.
Well, okay, Rico, we're at a bit of a quandary here because I've got a few, but all of mine I feel like are going to generate some stories. But you're the movie guy, and I know if we let you off the leash, you may not shut up. So how do you want to do this?
I can go first, or I can go before you, and then you could take over.
All right. Well, I was just making a joke, really. You sound all like "fuck you" again.
No, honestly, if I sound like "fuck you," it really is just because I don't feel good. It's really bad.
No, that's fair. I know you're feeling for those that aren't aware, or because I don't know if we talked about it on recording. Rico's playing hurt, so thank you for sitting through this.
It really is. I mean, this job for the podcast is a lot of trying to be upbeat and animated. And when you have a migraine, you're just like, all you want to do is just kind of punch yourself in the face so you can knock yourself out and not feel any pain. So, but regardless,
to be fair for the listeners, I did give Rico the option not to do it. So we're not dragging him into this kicking and screaming.
No,
he did say
I wanted to do this for you listeners because if I had to go to work at the video store, I would have to go to work. So this is just another job, and this is another love that I have to do, and I love to do. So fucking say thank you. God damn it.
No, thank you.
God damn it.
I was thank you. Damn it. So I have a lot of, like we said earlier, I do have a lot of movies that I can just kind of go for that influence and sort of shaped who I was. I would probably say the first one that I think my first memory of being in a theater was The Lion King. And I think that kind of because I don't remember what, CJ, what?
No, you just make me feel old, that's all.
Well, CJ, you are fucking old.
Well, I'm aware of that. My reunion reminded me of that very much so. But
look, can't I just fucking appreciate The Lion King and not have to be like, oh.
Yes, it wasn't about you appreciating The Lion King. That's a great movie.
Yeah, you were what? Losing your virginity when you saw it? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, that's your earliest memory.
It's my earliest movie theater memory.
If we want to talk about virginity movies, then I have to steal Steph's because it was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh my good God. Did she scoop it out with a fucking spoon?
What? Oh,
Cousin?
Yeah, I
I thought it was Spaceballs.
Continue with your list, please.
So my first
Yes, I know.
He's like, please stop loving me. For all that is holy, please stop loving me. Hate me for a little bit. So yeah, The Lion King I saw, I must have been 3 because it came out in 94. So I don't have 80 Shut the fuck up, CJ. I don't have any fucking memory of the movie itself in like at the theater, but I remember being freaked the fuck out by the opening, which is like you hear birds and you hear like the sounds of the fucking of the jungle.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's the and like that rising sun, and I think it scared the hell out of me because I was not expecting. No one was, and I think that would just. But then that was my first, I think, real exposure to seeing a movie. My mom says that I think I slept through the whole thing, so that's probably why I don't remember it. But I don't remember falling asleep or even waking up later. But so that was the introduction. But I think the first movie that really kind of clicked with me when I was a little kid was Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer. Do you feel young enough yet, CJ?
That's just a random movie. It's not something I would have picked. I'm not saying for me, I would have never. If you had told me that I had to pick 100 movies, you might have picked that. Wouldn't have been one of them. And it's not because it's a bad movie or there's anything wrong with it. I just wouldn't have figured that to be a movie.
Abbott and Costello were some of my heroes when I was little kid. And my dad, whatever I could say with my father, my dad definitely introduced some interesting things to my life. He said, this is what I like. If you don't like it, too bad. I'm watching it anyways. And then I sort of just gradually liked or appreciated what he introduced to me. And Abbott and Costello, especially when you're a little kid, is just fucking hysterical. And the first, I think the first movie I saw of them was Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer, which is them at a hotel, and then a murder happens, and all these murders keep happening, and Costello's the prime suspect. And I remember laughing so fucking hard at like 6 years old, just getting it. It was scary enough for a 6-year-old where I could appreciate the horror element to it, but it was also funny enough where I'm like, this is just a fucking funny movie. Then, just like how my dad introduced that to me, he also is still always listening to classical music, always listening to classical, always listening to Italian opera, always listening to Pavarotti and Bocelli, and those are like his boys. It's fucking Beethoven, Mozart, and Verdi. Those are his three fucking amigos right there. And with the introduction of that, I saw the movie Amadeus.
I love that movie. I think we all agree that is a fucking amazing movie.
Oh yeah.
And that was my favorite movie when I was like 8 years old. Which, on one hand, I loved the fact that it was my favorite movie when I was 8, because despite when I opened my fucking mouth, when I was younger, people always said I was really mature for my age. The irony is I just sort of grew into my voice, I think, now. And whenever my dad would tell them, like, oh yeah, Rico's favorite movie is Amadeus, they would always look at me and be like, oh man, that's fucking weird. Your 8-year-old son loves Amadeus. And I kind of like that attention. But also the movie was just fantastic anyways. It's a rich story.
You like attention? No.
What?
Why do you think I'm like with you guys?
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, Amadeus is just for pound, probably just a perfect film. I can't find anything wrong with it.
Well,
the acting is
okay.
I mean, I can't find anything wrong with it. I every time I watch it, I'm always entertained. I could watch that movie beginning to end every single time.
I know, so could I. But much like what we were talking about with Robin Hood, there's some holes in the overall story arc. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of from an entertainment value. And
I view it as it's not so much it's not a biopic, because a lot of it is very fictionalized on Mozart and Salieri's lives.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So I interpret it as an old man telling his interpretation of what he remembers happening. Therefore, little plot holes and little inaccuracies can happen. It's just literally his memory. It's not a straight up biopic. It's not like Immortal Beloved about Beethoven or Ray about Ray Charles, where it's like linear. This is his life. Mozart's just about I mean, Amadeus is just a murder mystery that really isn't a murder or a mystery.
Right.
And I got to give the filmmakers and the actors credit. They had an impossible feat, which was, let's make a fucking movie about classical music right smack in the middle of the 80s. Like, they were going up against fucking MTV and shit. Like, they were like making this fucking grand opus about a fucking opera, basically, about opera setting and wigs and frog and what the fuck. But still, they succeeded. So I really connected to that for a long time. I'd still definitely probably, if I can have a top 10, it would definitely be in the top 10. Then all that shit went askew when my brothers were finally given free liberty to taking me to movies. And I have two older brothers, and one of them took me to see the South Park movie.
Oh, dear theaters.
God. So I was 8 when that movie came out.
When they took you to see Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Yes.
Oh, dear God. Well, I mean, to be fair, your mom took you to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back at what, 9, I think you said?
10, yeah.
10, okay.
So my brothers had already planted the seeds. And the movie, for those who haven't seen the South Park movie, first off, wow. Second of all, the movie is about the 4 kids, the 8-year-old kids, going to see an R-rated movie, walking out of it with their fucking, like, their vernacular being more cuss words than ever before. So it was literally life imitating art, imitating life. Because I was 8 years old, walked out of the theater, singing the song, "Shut your fucking face, Uncle Fucker." Like, I think I laughed so hard I may have pissed my pants. I was so engrossed. I just kept watching the movie. Like, I couldn't leave. It was just, I remember laughing until I cried and my ribs hurt. And I saw that movie, I think 15 times, like when I was like 8 years old.
Oh,
and then the second or third time I saw it, same brother and my dad and I went to Canada for whatever fucking reason. I don't remember why we went to Canada. And so we ended up seeing the South Park movie again in Canada. And the fucking Americans are fighting the Canadians in the movie. So I'm like 8 years old, kind of very aware that, like, we might get killed because we're watching a movie where they're making fun of Canadians in Canada. So that definitely shaped my vernacular. And that a lot of my language has come from that sort of seedling. And then, of course, my mom took me to see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and that was definitely another one. So I don't really have like age groups. I mean, I have like most of them were happened when I was like around before 11 years old. And then
yeah, Steph, did we lose you? Did we lose you?
No,
I'm still here.
Okay, you've just been really quiet. I was afraid we lost you. Go ahead, Rico.
No.
She's just letting me talk. She knows the drill. It's weird. Like 8 years old, I think was kind of like a huge turning point in my life. I was watching Amadeus. I was watching Abbott and Costello. I saw the South Park movie, and actually, like, that's when Frank Sinatra was introduced to my life. I was 8 years old. So it's really weird. Like, I wish I could just be 8 years old again with that magic and amazement of all these things that will shape my life introduced to my life again. And there are some Sinatra movies that I definitely appreciate and I definitely love, but they're not ones that, like, I don't think they shaped who I am, because it was really the music and the man that really influenced me. Although I definitely appreciate watching, like, The Man with the Golden Arm. That's a really fucking, like, tremendous performance of his. He plays a heroin addict, which was like in a movie. Go ahead.
No, go, Rico.
It was a time where they never even said heroin in films, let alone actually show someone shooting up or going cold turkey. So I remember watching that, being like, "Oh, he's not just a singer; he's a fucking actor." So
I would love for you and I at some point to do a face-off. We did it before with the Halloween movies where you watch the new one and I watch the old one. You know what I mean? But that was for the Halloween episode. But I would like us to do something similar with the two Ocean's 11 movies. Because I have a feeling you're a bigger fan of the Sinatra one. No,
actually, I'm not. You would think that, but I will be the first to say it. I love Sinatra. I love the Rat Pack. But the remake is superior. It is a much better film. It's more entertaining. The original Ocean's 11. And the irony is that I went to the video room that I currently work at when I was like a kid and I was introduced to Sinatra. I went to the library, looked up, checked out books, found out he was an actor, went to the video room before I, even knew of video places and rented like a bunch of VHSs. And I remember going up to, I think it was my manager who hired me years later. I said, "Do you have any movies with Frank Sinatra?" And he looked at me like, "What the fuck?" Like, he's like, "Are you doing a school project or something?" And I was like, "Nope, just curious." I told the same guy, Bill, when I was having my interview to work there. I said, "I don't remember that. I think I would remember that. It must not have been me." So that was a little weird full circle. But yeah, Ocean's 11, I appreciate it, but I also just did not like the fact that Sinatra doesn't sing, which really threw me.
Gotcha.
Movie. Which is why I probably like Robin of the Seven Hoods a little bit more, because he sings pretty prominently in that one. Yes, Stephanie, I can hear you rolling your fucking eyes. Are you there, or do we just lose you completely? There she is.
No, I'm still here. So you've gone up when you're like 10. What did you like to see in your middle school formative years, or your high school formative years, I should say? What was your go-to when you were like, in your late teens?
I think that's really when I got heavily into horror films, because I always had that weird like interest in horror films when I was younger. But I think starting around 13 to about 18, that's when I really sort of branched out and watched a lot of the horror films that I do like now. Halloween I saw when I was about 11. So that set the seed, planted the seed. And then I sort of just watched everything else, all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, all the Halloween films, all the Child's Play ones. Child's Play in particular, I had a love-hate thing, because my brother showed me a scene of the second one when I was 6 years old, and that kind of scared the shit out of me ever since then. And then I just started watching them and being like, okay, they're actually not that scary. I can appreciate them. So around in my teen years, late teen years, I think it was not any specific movie. It was just the horror genre. And I would also argue that most teenagers go through a darker period when they're going through their teen years. They listen to darker music. They read existential books. They develop their quirkiness a little bit more. They watch a lot of Tim Burton. They go to Hot Topic. I'm not saying they all go to fucking goth. I'm saying they all become goth, but I didn't listen to Marilyn Manson until I was a teenager. What?
A lot of us do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think the teen years are definitely the darker years. So it was me branching out with a lot of darker films. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, in particular, was not a favorite movie of mine, but it definitely influenced me just to see something so bizarre. Because the plot of that movie, just like the plot of that book, is just what the fuck. And then, even Hunter S. Thompson, the author, was like, I have no fucking clue if Fear and Loathing is filmable. And then, motherfuckers managed to do it. I would say probably my early to mid 20s, which, now I can actually fucking say, because I'm 27. I'm now officially in my late 20s. I would say it was kind of me watching older films, like stuff that I was never a part of, didn't grow up with, like 80s stuff. Like a lot of Lethal Weapon, a lot of Die Hard, a lot of the action shit, a lot of Schwarzenegger, a lot of Stallone. It was me kind of like really just kind of like, what's all this shit that my older brothers are talking about? What's all this that they were like grew up with? So I would say Rocky is probably one of them. Rocky and the Goonies were toe to toe with those movies. I'm just like, holy shit. Like I saw the Goonies when I was a kid, and motherfucker's wearing a goddamn Goonies shirt. I mean, dude, I would not be upset if you said, oh, the Goonies was one of my picks, because Goonies never say die.
I'm gonna shut up.
Okay then. Apparently one Goonie will say
I've gotten
die.
murdered enough in this episode to not die again.
So what you're telling us, Rico, is that you didn't have a go-to movie.
No, I really, honestly, my go-to movie was just whatever was available. I was my dad would yell at me for hours and days and months and years saying, like, stop watching fucking movies. I don't want to talk about movies. Stop bringing up movies. Because it was all I was interested in. And it still, in some aspects, is. You know, the reality of life is really, really, really fucking real. And I didn't particularly like that. So watching a lot of movies was really my only form of therapy. It didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter if it was Rain Man, which another movie I fucking love, or if it was Indiana Jones. I would watch anything and everything. And it was not necessarily like someone said, oh, you should watch this. It was just be like, oh, well, let's watch it. I watched Goodfellas when I was sick one day. I never heard about it. No one told me about it. No one said, you need to fucking see this. I don't even know how the fuck there was a copy available. But I just said, oh, okay. Popped it in, watched it, and had my mind fucking blown. So really, I don't have a go-to. That's why I have a collection, because all of them are go-tos.
Yeah, Rico, Steph, I gotta agree with Rico, because I don't have and Rico, if you're not done, I don't want to, completely cut you off.
Please stop me.
Okay. Because I don't have go-tos in the time period you're talking about, but to askew your question a little bit, you see what I did there? I like that.
Yeah.
I have movies that take me back to those time periods. So I can definitely link movies to time periods, but I wouldn't call them go-tos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you saw a movie on, you could be like, oh, that made me be back when I was in middle school.
Right, or yeah, exactly. And I have a list of movies that have different time periods or different memories, because sometimes they take me to people, not necessarily time periods, but to people. So I did put a list together of that kind of stuff, but they're not go-tos, if that makes sense.
So let me get this straight. I'm the only one that would repeat a movie to make myself feel better?
No, I don't think that's the case. And Rico, I don't want to speak for you, but I just I'm being honest, Steph. Like, I'm not even trying to to say anything to pump you up or whatever. I think there were movies that would make me feel better, but to call them go-tos, I don't know. I more have go-to songs than I do movies, just because of where my passions lie. But that doesn't mean I didn't have movies that helped during different periods of my life. Like, I'll give you one right off the top of my head. High Fidelity, I watched every day for 2 years when I was 21 to 23. I watched it almost every day. If it wasn't every day, it was 70% of the week. I'd watch it 3 out of 5 days or 4 out of 7 or whatever. You know what I mean? I watched that movie a lot. So if you want to call that a go-to, then yeah, that was a go-to at that time period. But it certainly did help me feel better. But there were other movies in that time period that I'm looking at my list here that also fit that mold that maybe weren't you were using to feel better. Does you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you.
My go-to movie when I'm feeling bad is Big Bouncing Booties #7. That will fucking always put me in a great mood. The first 6 were not very good, but #7, oh shit.
I mean, to your point, Steph, there are movies that will make me feel better when I'm in a shitty mood. Absolutely. But the problem is none of them are like, this is the one. It's how it's like we were talking about with the music earlier. It's how I'm feeling. What do I need to feel better at that moment? So there are times where like Hunt for Red October's made me feel better for no reason except that I was able to completely lose myself in that movie for an hour and a half or hour 40 minutes or whatever the running time is and forget about whatever other bullshit was going on around me. Do you know what I mean? But there's nothing there's nothing about that movie that made that movie that day the go-to except that that's what I wanted to watch on that day at that time. Does that make sense? I can agree with that.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So
the only other movie that sorry, CJ, go ahead.
No, please, Rico, you were going to make a point.
Well, I've said it before, and I said it earlier in the episode. The only movie that really impacted me when I was in my early 20s was Inside Out. Like, I made a whole joke about it, but like, all the movies, every fucking movie I've ever seen, I've never cried at. So, and I always thought there was something wrong with it. Like, watching fucking Forrest Gump or watching The Lion King when fucking Mufasa dies. Which, by the way, everybody who fucking got through that bullshit when they were a little kid or an adolescent now has to do with James Earl Jones again with this new fucking movie they're doing. So get ready to fucking cry your eyes out as a grown ass man. So Inside Out really like it opened the floodgates. I make a joke about it all the fucking time, but now I cry at almost every fucking movie. I cried at Insidious 3. Not because it was bad, but because it was like there was a touching scene with like the ghost of the main character's ghost mother came and protected her. I'm like, all of a sudden I'm crying. Michael looks at me, he's like, "Are you fucking crying?" I'm like, "I don't know what's wrong with me now. Before I didn't know what was wrong with me before because I didn't cry. Now I'm crying at everything." So. Well,
and Rico, and we'll save this for when we do our roundtable, but I think that goes back to the thing you posted online a couple months back that it helped inspire this roundtable we're going to do. But I agree with you. But I think a traumatic life event can help with that in terms of causing that to happen. So Rico, maybe there was something about Inside Out, and I'm not making a joke. It may sound like it, but I'm being dead serious. There may be something about Inside Out that, even on a subconscious level, triggered a memory that allowed those emotions to come forward, and they still are broken free. Like, I was like you. I never cried at movies, and then, not to bring the room down, but we've talked about my ex being killed in a car accident 18 years ago, and from that moment forward, I cry at movies, and I don't know why that moment specifically, except for, obviously it's a traumatic moment. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not, but that moment has spawned my emotional cycle permanently. Like, I cry at things I never used to cry at since that day. You know what I mean? So there may be something about Inside Out that triggered that for you. Who knows?
Well, I cried a lot. Like I said earlier, I am a very emotional person, and adding Italian identity to that, where you're just screaming and emotional in every aspect, whether you're loud or upset or happy or jovial, doesn't matter. So it wasn't that I never cried, because I was crying all the fucking time. I never cried at a movie. And then I had an ex who died too. And I think there's something about, burying someone that you knew, burying someone you were intimate with, burying someone, because it's a whole other spectrum. It's not an uncle. It's not a grandparent. It's not even
it's a very different, it's a very different emotion. Believe me. I understand what you're saying.
I had another ex who knew Allie, who had passed away, and I told her, I gave her the news, and she very bluntly, and I have never spoken to her since, because it just however long I was with this ex, completely shattered my perception of them ever since then, and I refused to forgive them. She said, when I said, "Hey, Allie died. I know you knew her. I'm just letting you know Allie died." And I was still going through, I just heard the news like a couple days before, and I was really broken up about it. And then my current girlfriend at the time had just broken up with me, even after I said, like, this is not a good time for me. Please don't do this. I just found out my ex just died. What the fuck? She said to me, you've had sex with a dead person.
Yeah.
Which, not to mention, is a horrible fucking thing to say to someone that just is grieving. But that really, in a nutshell, is really what it is I buried someone that I had sex with. And sex, in the proper usage, is one of the most beautiful fucking things you can do with someone. And to just have those memories of being intimate with someone snuffed out, really fucking, ever since I think I grew up a little bit more in that moment with that realization. And then I think Inside Out, because I saw it with my mother, my girlfriend at the time, and my stepfather, and we're all watching, and I look over, and I remember watching my mom, because my mom is a total crier, will cry at every fucking movie that is even just slightly mushy. And she is able to do it with tears flooding down her fucking eyes and down her face with a big smile on her face, because she's loving it, but she's just super, just like, if it was you or me or Stephanie, we would be like a mess, like unable to speak with all the amount of tears that are coming out of our face. My mom is able to just fucking act completely normal. She could tell you a whole story and be sobbing, but she's got it all together. And I'm watching it, and the main character in Inside Out is a little girl who moves from Minnesota to the Bay Area. My mom has roots in Minnesota. My grandfather is from Minnesota, and she was a girl, and she lives in the Bay Area. So I'm watching my mom and realizing that she's connecting this fucking film in so many fucking ways that I can never really fully comprehend. So I think I got emotional from Allie's death, and also just kind of seeing my mom for the first time as not just my mom, that she was a little girl once, you know? And I think it was just, and then also fucking Bing Bong, that really fucking triggered the whole goddamn thing. The imaginary man, character who like, you know, and he says goodbye and said, take care of her. And you're just like, fucking Bing Bong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Inside Out. Like, no, is it a movie that if I'm feeling bad, I'll go to? No, because once or twice was enough, because I don't need to cry any fucking more.
No, I hear you.
At least
absolutely.
I'll wait till fucking, you know, Insidious Chapter 5. Then I'll fucking cry at that one.
So
if we can stay off topic just a little longer, I actually didn't cry at movies either, which is kind of surprising when people learn this, because I'm a very empathetic person and I cry at like the drop of a hat. If I can feel your pain, I cry. But it really wasn't that way for me most of my childhood. I was able to detach the fiction from myself. So I didn't have a personal empathy for what was going on. I was like, it's a story, whatever, I can move on. But that all changed when I got on hormone regulating medication. And then all of that, being able to control shit, went right out the window. I have become the most mushy-gushy, I cry at even just thinking about it things. It was surreal how the hormones changed everything.
I can imagine.
I can reiterate, and Steph, if it's okay, I'll share this quick little story. I have a family friend who, up in my father's farm area.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, love.
Up in northern Sonoma County, where my father has a farm. It's really in the middle of nowhere, up in the mountains, country, blah, blah, blah. And we have neighbors. I mean, you have to drive there, you know, or you could really hike up a fucking hill. But we have neighbors, and a lot of them are older hippies that just kind of like want to get the fuck away from the city life. And there's a couple named Jim and Dave. And as long as I can think. Every time my dad and I would go up to the land, which is what we call it, the land, we would go and visit and have dinner with Jim and Dave. We'd just drive over. Dad would drink his wine. They'd fucking talk about bullshit. And it was a weird upbringing in a weird way, because I was very aware they were gay, and I was very aware they were, old hippies, and they were talking about Bush. They were talking about politics and raving and pissed off. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. And Dave, the older of the two, died within the past year. And I saw him towards the end of his life, and he was walking around with a oxygen tank, and he was not doing well. But to be fair, he in particular has always kind of looked feeble to me. He's always looked like an old man to me. They both look like mountain men with big beards and long, kind of twisted up hair, and they look like mountain men. But Dave was always super gentle and super soft, and until he was yelling at Jim. There was a lot of love between the two of them. They were a bickering couple. And so David passed away. And this is New Year's of last year. And so Steph and I went to the land, spend New Year's with my dad, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I've got to go see them. I've got to go see Jim. I have to. And Steph went along with me. Steph never met Jim and Dave. This is her first time in the land. She and I had only been dating not that long. So it was touching for her to come with me, and it was our first trip together, and blah, blah, blah. And we talked to Jim, and Jim now has Parkinson's, so he's shaking, and but he's still very strong and still talking to us. And I said, so tell me about Dave. He said, oh, do you want to go see him? I said, what the fuck? And you're not supposed to be able to bury your dad, but he didn't give a shit. So he just took him, she just took us out to the garden, and I'm overcome, and I'm crying, and I look over at Steph, and Steph never met the guy, but it was so touched with emotion. She's just crying silently with me. Never met the dude, just understood that he was a gentle guy and was a gentle spirit, and was just, and that actually, we were making this fucking episode really a dour, but I mean, Steph was there, and helped me through a grieving process that I wasn't really knowing I had to go through, and Steph was there. So,
and it's good to have someone like that. So, Steph, kudos to you for being there for Rico, because I think it helps, when you're dealing with something like that, So,
thank you for being. Oh no,
what's that?
I'm teary now.
Aw,
that's because we saw fucking Ralph Breaks the Internet.
There you go.
That's true.
I do have something I'll tell you guys about when we're off, but I'm not ready to bring that up here. But let's bring it back around a little bit. I can kind of get into my list of stuff a little bit. Some of it's quick hits, some of it's got longer stories. If you guys want elaboration on any of them, please, that I don't elaborate on, please stop me, and I will gladly do so if I can. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. So, Rico, you brought up a really interesting point that I thought I would touch on, which is the first movie you remember in the theaters. And there's three for me because I'm not sure which one came first. So I'm going to mention all three of them, but I don't honestly remember which one comes first for me. So there's Transformers, the animated movie based on the cartoon show. And that movie came out back in the 80s. Have you seen that?
It was 89, 90.
89. Okay, then that's probably not the first one, to be fair, because, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not first then, but there's that. Then there's, this one's probably also not it based on years, but then there was Short Circuit 2. I remember seeing that in the theater, because I love the Short Circuit movies. I do love those movies. Those movies, They're not great, but they definitely hold like a special place just for, growing up. You know what I mean? Kind of like Amadeus does for you, but it's not as good of it's not as much of a classic movie, but you know what I mean?
Short Circuit 2 is way better than Amadeus.
No, come on, let's be real about it. And then there's an Alvin and the Chipmunks animated movie where it's Alvin, Simon, and Theodore, but then there's these female chipmunk, the Chipettes. and they're like racing each other around the world. And these diamond smugglers are using them to smuggle their diamonds when they think they're just doing this race around the world. I really wish I remember what it was called, but there's that movie too.
Wasn't it just the Alvin and Chipmunks movie or something?
No, because they had a couple movies, if I remember. I'm actually trying to look it up right now. Give me one quick second. Stupid webpage is moving slow. Alvin. Because there's those new ones now. The
new ones.
Yeah, it was this animated Alvin and the Chipmunks thing, and it was like, obviously because it's Alvin and the Chipmunks, there's music and stuff, and they're racing around the world, and ultimately, it was just one of those kind of movies. So, but it's a fun movie, and I haven't seen it in years, and I bet you it doesn't hold up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You go back to your favorite movies and you're like, how could I have possibly liked this?
And that's actually caused me to stop doing that, because there's been a couple times where I've done that and it's destroyed the movie so bad that I'm like, no, I don't want to not like this movie anymore. But, what are you going to do?
That's what I'm telling you, man. Butts number 1 through 6 are just not as good as I remember. That's why I go to number 7.
Number 7.
37. But anyway, so
I will buy everything like a 37.
So I'm gonna go with Alvin and the Chipmunks. Is probably the earliest one I saw. There's a couple movies that just take me back to my childhood in general, but for reasons that are so strange. Like, for example, my mom thought it would be a great idea to show me 2001: A Space Odyssey when I was like 9.
Oh my god, you fall asleep?
I did, and the whole thing went over my head. Like, I totally didn't get it. I didn't understand why I'm watching these monkeys fucking beat up a black piece of... I didn't even realize it was stone. Like, this black thing sitting in the middle of the desert or whatever. The whole thing with Hal went right over my head. And I haven't seen it since. I've not seen it in its entirety since. And I probably should go back and watch it, because I think I'd probably have a better understanding of it now.
I still think it.
You don't like it?
Nah, I still think it's awful.
I've just never seen it.
I saw it in high school, and I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. So it just went over my head. But and sticking with my mom, though, there's a movie that always reminds me of my mom. Always, 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 because she loves the movie so much, but because she does, it reminds me of her every time I even just see like a poster for it or whatever. And that was Beaches with Bette Midler.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My mom loves that movie. So anytime I see that movie, it makes me think of her. And conversely, like with my dad, there's 2 time periods for my dad. And Rico, we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, but my dad had what's called a primary progressive aphasia, which is basically a form of Alzheimer's, but it's not Alzheimer's. Like, it doesn't fall into that classification. And as he was progressing with the disease, he regressed in terms of things that he liked. So, and we talked about the Charlotte Webbs thing. Do you remember we were talking about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that, and then other cartoon movies. Like he had cartoons that were just movies he loved. So, and he loved Ratatouille, which is why I mentioned it earlier. So Ratatouille holds such a place for me because of my father, I think. Plus it's a really good movie, I think. Anyway,
yeah,
I don't know.
It's a good film. I'm with you there.
But I think because of my father, it holds a different meaning, but that's his latter years. And his, earlier in my life when I was a kid, it's Raiders. My dad loved Raiders of the Lost Ark. So we, and they used to run that like every, I want to say Labor Day weekend, back when it was like 6 channels. Every Labor Day weekend on the ABC, they would run Raiders. And sometimes even Raiders and Temple, like back to back. What, Steph?
Back when there was like 6 channels.
Well, yeah. There was a time in my life when there was only like 6 channels to watch, 7 channels to watch.
I only laughed because I was just telling Rico in the car the other day that I didn't have cable until I was like 18.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm very familiar with those 6 channels.
Steph, we don't have cable now.
No, we don't need cable now because there's streaming, services.
Right. You can at least pick and...
dare you?
Well, just because you want to live an antiquated life, Rico, that doesn't... I don't know. Anyway.
You joke, but if you were near the video room, you'd probably rent from me.
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably. So, then, when I was in my... what's that?
You said Raiders. I was trying to get you back on.
Oh, I know. I know where we're at. But thank you, because I actually wrote out a list for this one, because I knew it was going to be a little extensive. When I was in my early teen years, we used to go to this campground that I think I've talked about before, Rico. I don't remember. And it wasn't camping by any stretch of the imagination in the true sense of the word. We had a trailer, there was electricity, running water, hell, we had showtime. So it wasn't, traditional camping, but it was a way to get away, and it was like having a vacation home that was affordable. So we could go down there, and we would go almost every weekend in the summer. And they used to have this contest. The place was called Tall Pines, and they had a contest for their what were known as regulars, meaning people who would rent like all year. You would pay like a yearly or whatever, and you'd have a set space that was yours, as opposed to what were known as weekenders, who would be like people who would just show up on a Friday and be like, I want to rent a space, and they'd give them whatever space was open. And the regulars, there was a beauty pageant for the female like teens in the campground, and it was called the Miss Tall Pines pageant. And my one friend, who I won't name because I don't know if she'd want me to, was in the thing, and they were doing the swimsuit thing, and they were describing her as an enthusiastic camper, but she hated being there. Like, fucking hated it. And so I'm standing there with a couple friends of mine, and I said enthusiastic, and apparently I said it louder than I realized, and the whole fucking place heard me. And she shot me like this death look from across the pool where they were doing the swimsuit competition. So after the competition was over, me and my 2 friends, we like hightailed it back to my trailer and hid. Like, we stayed there for like 4 hours. And like I said, we had cable and Showtime and stuff. And Sneakers came on, which I had seen before. But do you know that movie, Rico?
I know it, but I've never seen it.
You've never seen it? Okay, it's not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's great in that it's, this classic film that everyone should see, but it's a fun fucking movie. And you got Robert Redford and Ben Kingsley and Dan Aykroyd, Sidney Poitier. I mean, you're dealing with some heavy hitters in this movie. River Phoenix before he died.
Do you remember the basic plot? It sounds very familiar, the cast at least.
Me? Yeah, absolutely. So what it is it's a bunch of guys who have been basically thrown out of their professions for one reason or another, and they break into places to help the places determine how good their security is. So it's a business they have, and then ultimately the CIA comes calling, and for those not seeing, I did air quotes on CIA because it isn't the CIA, but they're trying to get this thing called Janix Box, and it's the ultimate code breaker, and it would allow anyone to decrypt anything, like getting into the NSA or getting into the power grid or whatever. And I'm not doing it justice, Rico. It's a fun fucking movie. It's not cinematic greatness.
It rents all the time.
What's that?
It rents all the time. So my curiosity, little by little, has been blooming because I'm like, I need to watch this fucking movie.
It's a good movie. I love this movie. You know what? One thing we should do sometime, Rico, is we should watch a movie together. Like, I could bring it up on the laptop, and we should sit and watch a movie together, like Sneakers or something. But anyway,
sure.
because I think that would be fun. But
we could do that movie that you're always giving me shit that I haven't seen. What the fuck was it? The one that like you told me you haven't seen. God damn it!
Oh,
it's
Hackers.
Like a fucking, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we'd get it up. It might be on Netflix because there's not a digital copy for that, and I'm not going to buy it digitally just so we can do that. But anyway, we'll figure it out. That's another thing. But so we hid in the trailer for like 4 hours, and we watched Sneakers and a couple other things. But Sneakers was the one that sticks out for me. And I had seen it before that. It's not the first time I saw that, but now because of that memory, it takes me to that moment every time I see it. But that would be my early teen years. In high school, it's 2 movies. It's actually 3 movies, but 2 more important. I'll mention all 3, but the 2 important ones are Men in Black, the first one, and the first Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah.
So, which is why I'm really excited for Tuesday because I'm getting Fallout. So I can't wait to get that and see it because I haven't seen that yet.
Dude. It's good.
Yeah, I have them all, and I've seen them all except Fallout. And I had meant to go see it in the theater, but life got in the way. But yeah, so Mission Impossible was my first date with my now late ex. So that's why I think the Mission Impossible series holds something for me because I don't know. And then Men in Black was one that we did go to, but Mission Impossible was our first date. So, and then the other one is Batman and Robin, but I know how terrible it is, so I'm not. But that's that one. Let's see here. In my early 20s, actually, before I get there, there's one I missed here. When I was sick. There's a memory I have from when I was real young. And Rico, I've told this story, so we're not going to get into it deep, but you may remember my mom bought Batman, the Keaton Batman for me when I was sick. Yeah. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Steph, did you hear it? Do you know?
I want to say I've heard it, yeah.
Okay, well, for anyone who hasn't heard it, and Steph, to refresh your memory, when I was sick one day from school, I'd not been able to shake something, and my mom brought me home from school, and she thought to try to help me feel better, she'd go get me a movie. So she went out and bought Batman, the 89 Michael Keaton one, not realizing it was a live action, a little more gritty than the Batman cartoons and the 66 Batman that I used to watch. And I just remember Mom about halfway through it going, oh, what did I buy? But she, to her credit, didn't turn it off and did let me watch the whole thing. So that was fun. I actually still have the tape. It was a VHS tape, Rico. I know you appreciate those. I still have it.
Oh, so you're telling us you've been scarred for life?
Yes. Yes. Also on a yearly thing, when I was talking about yearly with the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the 10 Commandments, which Rico, we've also talked about with Cecil B. DeMille. Mm-hmm. But I watch that movie every year right around Easter. And I'm far from what you would call religious at this point, but I still watch that every year around that time.
Certain traditions don't die.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with, it's not a movie, but I watched the Peanuts specials for every one of them. And Enrico, you laughed heartily when I told you I own them all on Blu-ray a couple episodes back.
I own them all on DVD.
What's that, Rico?
I said I still do.
Yeah. In my early 20s, there's a couple movies that jump out at me. But the two most important ones, I guess you would say, would be, well, I mentioned High Fidelity, so there's three. High Fidelity, Fight Club, because I really identified with that split personality kind of thing for a while. Like, I wasn't seeing, hallucinations of another thing, but I really did identify with that projecting what you want to be versus what you are. And that's what Tyler Durden is.
Are we speaking to CJ right now?
Yeah. Yes, you are. But I mean, that's what Tyler Durden is. It's it's a great line from The Matrix, which is one of the reasons why I love The Matrix 2, where when Morpheus is first explaining to Neo the difference between being in the real world and being in the Matrix, and he goes, did you notice the plugs in your hands and your arms are gone? It's the digital projection of your mental self. And that's kind of what Tyler Durden is to the narrator in that movie. You know? So, there's that. And then my buddy who used to basically live at my place when I was in my early 20s. I mean, when I say live, like he would come and spend days at my place. We watched Fast and the Furious. I can't tell you how many times. Because we just both love cars and Jordana Brewster, to be fair. But yeah, we loved the cars and we just loved watching the races. And even though we knew what was going to happen, we didn't care. It was just fun watching them drive the cars and all that shit and fix the cars up and stuff. So Fast and Furious, especially the first one, the whole series, but the first one especially takes me back to my early 20s every time I see it. And then the last one I would mention, and Rico, I think this one's going to make your head explode. But, so in my latter 20s, whatever around your age, to be honest, Rico, I started working at Sam Goody, and we've talked about that before, but I got to be really close with the store manager I worked for to the point where we're still friends to this day. And we'd have what we called the Thursday meetings after a while, because eventually he and his best friend, who was an assistant manager, and I all got shipped off to different stores because that's just retail and that's how that works. So we'd all come together on Thursdays to commiserate about what was going on in our particular stores and complain and whatever. And we'd get Little Caesars pizza and we'd watch movies. And one week we were sitting around and they were quoting The Godfather. And I had no idea what they were talking about. No idea. Because I had never seen it. And so in back-to-back weeks, we watched Godfather 1 and 2. And then we skipped 3 because they told me it was terrible. Which I've seen it since and I agree. But yeah, so The Godfather takes me back to those meetings, and there's a couple movies from that, but that one specifically.
It took me a while to see The Godfather, so I'm not really been out of shape that it took you that long. I think I was maybe like 13 or 14 when I saw it. I still love Godfather. I still love Godfather 3, so I'm not like a Puritan. It's like, oh, it's only 1 and 2, and I'm like, I love them all. I mean, they're all very different films.
No, I can agree with that. I'm one of the few that I think I like the first one better. I understand the second one.
I do too.
Okay, because it's like the Dark Knight trilogy when we were talking about that, where like I like Batman Begins better, but I know Dark Knight is the more revered film. Same thing with The Godfather. I like the first one better, but I do understand why the second one is considered to be a better film. I don't have a problem with the second one. I think it's a fine movie and I enjoy it very much, but I prefer the first one.
I think in part I like the first one the most because I played the Godfather video game a lot.
Yeah.
And I still played the Godfather Part 2, but there's more interesting side stories in the first movie than there is in the second one to me. There's the horse's head. There's the, getting the gun behind the toilet. There's the, Michael in Sicily. There's Sonny Corleone finally getting what's coming to him for, at the toll booth. Like it's such a more mesmerizing bunch of stories, one long story. Whereas Godfather 2, it's very kind of generic for me. It's still an amazing film, but it's like, all right, Michael wants to get the fuck out of the mafia. He's in court. His wife hates him, and like something about Cuba. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen Godfather that it's like I haven't seen it.
Wow. Okay, well, you should get a chance to go back and watch it. Have you seen, Rico, Steph, I already know the answer for you based on what you just said, but Rico, have you seen what they call the Godfather saga?
I think they play that a lot around Thanksgiving because when Steph and I were over at my mom's on Thanksgiving, they always play on AMC and shit.
No. The thing on AMC that you're thinking of is they just run the 2 movies in like over and over again. The saga is something different.
No, they do. They do the 3. No, I know what you're talking about. That's why I'm trying to. I think I've seen it because Godfather 3 was started, and before the official movie started, they gave this whole recap of what the first 2 movies were, and I'd never seen that as a precursor to Godfather 3. It shows Al Pacino at the end of like Godfather 2 sitting at his house in Tahoe, just like thinking about his life and all the bullshit that he's had to go through in order to get to where he is now, as well as sacrificing all the people he's loved. And as they're doing that, while he's thinking of his life, it's playing like all the big scenes of Godfather and then Godfather 2 before it even gets to Godfather 3. And I had never seen that. So I'm watching just that opening with Stephanie, and it was kind of like the perfect way for her to kind of catch up on what the fuck is going on.
Right.
We didn't end up watching it. We were both exhausted. We were both fucking tired and going to sleep. But it was like she kind of got the rundown. But I wonder if that was like a saga thing or if they just were airing, because it was edited with the movie. It was really like whoever did it did a really good job where it shows Michael like, you know, thinking. You can kind of tell what he was thinking because they edited it where it's like him thinking about his brother. And then all of a sudden, like he kind of shifts his pose and moves his hand, you know, underneath his chin. And it kind of looks like he's thinking about past love. So it talks about the wife he had in Sicily. And then,
it didn't have like narrator dialogue or anything. It was literal spliced in scenes from the original movies, and it didn't feel like it was jumpy. It felt seamless the way that they just made this recap fit in with the new one that was starting.
Right. Well, that's not. Okay, and that all sounds awesome, but that's not what I'm talking about. So,
all right, so no, I have not seen the Godfather saga.
So what the Godfather saga is they, and this is with Coppola's permission. I think he was even involved in it for what it's worth. Just so you know, they took the 3 movies, all 3 of them, and they re-edited the whole fucking thing into one gigantic movie. It's something like 6.5 hours long. And they put it in chronological order. So everything with young Vito in Italy from the second movie starts the saga. You don't get to anything from the first Godfather until like an hour and a half in. You get all the young Vito stuff in Italy. You get all of the Dustin Hoffman... De Niro, sorry. The Robert De Niro stuff from when he's young Vito, first coming to New York. You get all of that before you ever see Michael or any of that stuff. You get all of it, and it goes in chronological order from that moment Vito, you know, leaves Italy and comes to Ellis Island all the way through to the end of 3.
I'd love to see that. I would spend a whole day doing that. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, they take it out. So when you get to the parts in 2 where, you know, Michael's out in Vegas, and you know how they would like do flashbacks? All those flashbacks are gone. They're up front. And it just runs through. And it's like I said, it's like 6.5 hours or some ridiculousness. Like, it's long. But they reran it. I've been trying to find it. I don't think it's available to buy. Like, I don't think it's something you can get, or if they did, it was very, very limited.
Weird. I've always heard of talk of like a possible Godfather 4.
Oh yeah, I've heard that too.
What I would want to see is a prequel about. I mean, if they were to do a Godfather 4. I could give less of a fuck about Andy Garcia's character from Godfather 3.
I agree.
I want to see young Sonny, getting a young actor to play James Caan's character, and have it be like similar to Godfather 2, where it's, you know, prequel as well as sequel. I want to see the rise of Sonny Corleone as well as the fall of his son in the future. I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Because Andy Garcia's character is his illegitimate son. So I want to see like the rise of Sonny Corleone and then his illegitimate son take down the Corleone empire just from being fucking stupid.
Right.
That's what I want to see. But that's just a whole other fucking side subject, which we have been doing all night.
Hey, but that's what the whole point of this is. It's just jam.
Absolutely. I'm trying to find...
I gotta give you credit. You may have given us one of the fucking longest episodes we've had in like a long time.
We're getting there.
Well, it is 3 separate topics, so you know.
Yeah, and we are 20 minutes short of our longest one so far. So if you want to try to,
well, did you cover all the ones that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. That was the last one for me. I think I hit them all. I mean, I'm sure I could come up with other ones that, you know, off the top of my head to take me back to moments or whatever, but... So, actually, Rico, it looks like it's only 1 and 2, actually. Now I'm looking this up. It looks like it's only 1 and 2. But still, it's 7 hours long, according to this.
Yeah. For a lot of people, that's enough.
Yeah. Although...
Christ, that's a working shift.
Yeah, right? But, you know, the one thing I'll give 3 is it did give us one of the most famous lines from the series, I think. When he says something to the effect of, like, every time I try to get out, they drag me back in, or I'm sure I'm butchering it, but it's something to that effect.
Would you like me to do it?
Please.
Once I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
I thought he yelled it more than that, but anyway, that's not the point.
No, he's speaking very softly. Although, Steph, I don't want to spoil it, but I got to kind of spoil it because we're talking about it. For those who haven't seen Godfather 3, I've always been a big fan of Pacino, but like Al Pacino does some of the best bit of acting and conveying emotion I've seen when his daughter gets shot at the end.
Yeah. And
you just see this look of anguish on his face, and he rushes over, cradles her body in his lap. When Mary dies and gets shot, you see this look of anguish. The most like heartbreaking acting I've seen, which really has not been super replicated in or even topped, from my opinion. It shows Pacino cradling his dead daughter in his lap, and he lets out this scream of, you could just tell, like, he had been trying to do everything for this fucking family and for his, and Coppola put in the music from Cavalleria Rusticana, so it muffles out the scream, and you just see Pacino like scream for like maybe a total of 25 seconds. Just long. Like, this dude is letting out every ounce of oxygen he has, and all the other characters are watching, kind of realizing how much he fucking loved his daughter, and how, I mean, it's sad for everybody, but like how it really is affecting him. And then he lets it out. He takes a breath, lets it out for like another 10 seconds. And for me, that is some of the best acting I've seen Pacino do.
See,
and that's the point, is he's so good. It's just screaming. That's how impressive it is.
He's got the goofiest fucking look on his face when he does it, I think. From what I remember, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but he had this, I don't know. I don't know.
You want to talk about screaming in English? It's Ewan McGregor at the end of Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'll give you that.
Oh, man.
I only saw that for the first time last year. Or earlier this year, maybe. Yeah.
I love-hate that movie.
Love-hate it?
Yeah.
So
I think, for me, Pacino takes the cake, but I will always scream in English whenever I sign on to PodAskew.
Thanks, Rico. Steph, do you have anything else on your list of topics or things you want to discuss? No, this is your show.
No, that was it. That was my list of 3 questions, 3 eclectic questions for today. Games, music, and videos. I hope you guys enjoyed doing this.
thank fuck it wasn't books, because that'll be for the next episode.
No, we'll let her and Arlen do that one together. We'll sit that one out.
Yeah, we'll just be like, you and I will just be screaming in anguish together.
There you go. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Hiya, everyone. Stephanie here with a few thank yous and FYIs on how you can get in touch with and follow PodAskew. Oh yeah, and the guys. Let's start with a huge shout out thanks to Dubbed in English for the opening theme music, 96 Reasons. If you're trying to find them online, they've dropped off the face of the earth. Just kidding. But no, really, their music is offline now, so send an email request to podaskew@gmail.com or CJ's Twitter handle @im_blade, and he'll throw you a copy of the full song and or the whole EP, Plan 9. Also, let's give a big thanks to Samuel Lemons for our closing music theme, Askew. I encourage you to discover more of Samuel's masterfully manipulated rhythms on SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/Samuel-Lemons. I don't know how you're listening to this now, but you can find other PodAskew episodes in several places, starting with iTunes and Stitcher, where a quick high-star rating from you goes a long way in helping us hit the top of the charts. Or you may prefer Google Play Music. Don't want to be strapped down by an app? Then find us on podcast search engine, Listen Notes. Type in PODASKEW, yes, that's all one word, into any of the aforementioned searches, and PodAskew will pop right up on whatever screen you're using. And of course, there's our founding site that started it all, Podcast Garden, at www.podcastgarden.com/podcast/PodAskew. By the by, if you're looking to host your own show, Podcast Garden is the ideal place for all your podcast hosting needs at a very affordable price. Now, if you want to agree with or yell at the guys directly, follow them and the show on Twitter. For the show, @PodAskew. For Rico, @RantsRico. And again, CJ is @im_blade. Finally, let's not forget our biggest thank you is to you for listening, subscribing, rating on iTunes and Stitcher, and promoting our show by being our fans. CJ and Rico truly appreciate your time and look forward to bringing you another episode soon.
Oxley! I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon!
Why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe?
Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more. Damn it! PodAskew. 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 PodAskew.